Ai tu aici, pentru șușotaj. Și mă rog, puteam să vorbesc și în engleză, dar nu cred.
Eu mă gândeam că eu nu am nevoie și fac doar pentru doamne din franceză în engleză, știi? E ok așa acolo? Din franceză te May I ask you one more favor to speak louder so that people on Zoom can hear you?
Yeah, sorry.
Dear guests, can we speak louder so that the people on Zoom can hear us? Of course we can. Okay, so we've got some audience on Zoom as well, virtual audience, and I think we're good to start. And thank you so very much for being here with us, joining us here. It is a real pleasure and a privilege for me to welcome the three authors that I relate to as friends as well as long time collaborators in the case of Vivienne Vermees. Vivienne Vermees, actress as well as author, as well as teacher of creative writing and she embodies numerous roles. There's Hazel Carey with us, a person with experience in theatrical, a great deal of experience as a presenter, broadcaster, and author in her own right, and of course, Tali Niemann-Szabo, an artist, a fine arts artist, as well as a creative writer herself. And it's a privilege for us to be here with the Phantasma Center, this prestigious Center for the Study of the Imagination that we are so proud of. We basically boast of at the Faculty of Letters. And it's a pleasure for me to give the floor to Professor Corin Braga, whose brainchild Phantasma is, and who has kindly agreed to have us here to begin with. So it started, it was a progression. There was a progression. We'll be talking about this in a while. Corin, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. All right, I was told to speak in French, not in English, so I passed to French, but I think for you, students in modern languages, it's not a problem. Is it a problem if I speak in French? Donc, je voulais souhaiter la bienvenue à nos amis de plusieurs pays, de l'Angleterre, de Britain, d'Israël. Ça, je dirais que exprime le mieux la, comment dire, la volonté aussi, la vocation du Centre de recherche sur l'imaginaire de réunir les gens de plusieurs pays, de plusieurs langues, de plusieurs cultures et aussi de plusieurs arts, que ce soit littérature, que ce soit art plastique, que ce soit film, etc., etc.
No, I don't mind. I prefer French to English. Really, I do. And there's no effort.
I myself don't know how to speak, what language to speak.
I don't know. It's impromptu.
Why don't you speak in Romanian?
Okay.
Can I just say that my husband is online watching, and he can't see you. You have to be.
Can we see? Hello, Yoram.
This is your. Yeah.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. Sorry. It's very difficult to be online.
See us. Yoram, you're on television.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Now apparently we can
Thank
see
you.
us. Okay, sorry about that, Corin.
Deci voi continua în română atunci, continui în română. Poate că singurul avantaj de a vorbi în franceză și nu în engleză vine din faptul că Centrul de Cercetare a Imaginarului și domeniul lui de cercetare, și anume imaginarul, provine din școala franceză a lui Gaston Bachelard, a lui Gilbert Durand, altor filozofi francezi.
French philosophers.
Dar în schimb are o, să zicem, o recepție și o traducere mai greoaie în limba engleză.
That is specifically Romanian.
It's very strange. Should I speak in English finally? I don't know what to do.
Why do we do every third
I
word?
thought French was the
So I was saying that the imaginary in English is not a good translation for l'imaginaire en français in French. In French, imaginaire is a concept which designs the creative power of the soul, of the intellect. So, meanwhile, imagination is the faculty of the intellect which, let's say, produces only phantasm, only illusions, only lies. And as you well know, the French philosopher Descartes and the rationalist philosopher and also the English philosophers thought that l'imagination, c'est la mère de toutes les erreurs. Imagination is the mother of all errors. So we had to wait for Kant and then for Carl Gustav Jung and for Gilbert Durand and for Gaston Bachelard to make of the imagination, productive imagination, to make a faculty which is creative, which is not only producing, how to say, false images, but is also adding contents and signification from the unconscious, from the human unconscious. It is really creative. So l'imaginaire would be a faculty which, on the one hand, is capable of organizing the images of the soul. The second, on the other hand, it's a faculty which can bring new senses and new signification to this. And in the third occurrence, it is also a faculty which can offer modelizing, the possibility of modelizing reality. So imagining possible future, imagining possible societies, and you need this. Although these utopias or dystopias are not real, they can help you to comprehend reality and to adapt to reality. So this was the contribution, the main contribution of the French school. Gilbert Durand also created a network of centres de recherche sur l'imaginaire, imagination studies. And here we have, I'm directing, and we created such a center 24 years ago. And we are integrated in this international network, which is now worldwide. It has centers in not only in France or Germany or Italy or Spain, but also Portugal and South Africa and Taiwan and Morocco and Tunisia. So it's really an international worldwide network. And we are meeting, we are publishing, our center is also publishing a review, academic review, academic journal in French and in English. And we are sharing our knowledge about imagination, about imaginary, about l'imaginaire. And I said that the imaginary is not the best translation in English, because I think, and you can feel, to say that something is imaginary means it's illusory. It doesn't exist. But still, the Canadian scholars have coined the term in the plural, imaginaries. So we have in English now, we can speak about cultural imaginaries, social imaginaries, historical imaginaries, and this means the whole domain of images through which people, collectivities, why not, whole countries can apprehend reality. It's some kind of a guide, of a means of perception of reality, which is not very, let's say, close to reality, because it can also have not only fine images, but also stereotypes and cliches, but it's the way in which human people apprehend the outside the natural reality, but also social or psychological reality. So this is our center, and I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad that you share with us your knowledge, and I wish you, well, good talks, and also to our students, be strong, ask questions, ask for explanation and whatever you want. Well, I myself have to apologize because I have a course now at 2 o'clock and I have to go quickly to my students before they run away. I left there, you know, some keys. I locked them in the room, but still I have to go there. So thank you very much for coming. And
So, I suppose I should be doing the honors now. Again, I would like to reinforce how much of a pleasure it is for me to come down and be on this today. Artists try to even relate to even find the right idea of contact. I think that a relatively congenial place to start, a place in the sense of a place of the mind, not literally physically place, would be a locus rather, would be the pandemic, because it is the pandemic in many, many ways that has provided the liaison and the germinating force, the effervescence for this synergy behind the project that the Taste of God video has become more than a book. It has actually grown into a project, into more than a project, into an imaginative, as Professor Braga was so dearly explaining, an imaginary, in a sense, propensity. And to that effect, I would simply like to set the tone for the discussion, and obviously very, very quickly, take the floor, bring the floor to, ask the actual guest to take the floor. And that concerns solitude. When you think the pandemic, you probably, one of the first things that comes to mind, let's say, is social isolation. Lockdown, solitude, the hunger Vivian was saying earlier today for meaning communication, actual, real human communication, a kind of reconceptualizing of the human to begin with, as we can look at the pandemic as a turning point, as a kind of threshold, the post-humanist threshold. We can look at the humanities in itself as a discipline, as a post-human phase in interrogation that calls for constant interrogation, I suppose. What is it that are we done with the era of the human? What is it that we're doing here in education as educators, not to mention the creative writers? And so what was this quest for authentic communication and the sense of connection, the way in which the pandemic brought us all together in a kind of common cause, fighting it, surviving, to begin with, speaking of utopia that Professor Braga brought up, of course, and dystopia in particular. And somewhat, some way, the pandemic as the trigger of an age which is already kind of dystopian. And it's getting close to, there is a phrase in Romanian, Viața va film. I'll try to say, yes, basically it's reality tends to be, even harder than the movie or cinematic representation, so to speak. And I will leave it all to the artists and authors, our special guests today, to themselves to describe this pursuit and how they got together, how it all happened, and there you go. Thank you again for coming, for joining us here today.
I'll start. I have to stand up, so I can't see right up to the back. So thank you so much, Adriana, for inviting us. And my pleasure. It's my 10th time in Romania. I love Romania. I'm really happy to be here. So it's interesting, Adriana, your introduction. I had a great lockdown. I had a fantastic lockdown. So I will have to rewind a little bit further back as to how we're all together. Because I was actually looking after my mother, who was in her 90s. She had dementia. It was very, very, very hard. And I got terribly, terribly depressed. That was my lot. That was awful. And I don't know, you know, when you get so depressed that you don't even know where to go next, what do you do? So I wasn't really into praying to some. So I asked my mother, who had wonderful flashes of intuition. And she was Irish, which is totally imaginary. 100%. We don't even need to discuss the imaginaire and the imaginary, although it's very interesting. But she's completely 100% in the zone of the unconscious. But she realized I was very unhappy, and she said, okay, what you do is, before you go to sleep at night, you ask your unconscious to give you a solution, and you wait in the morning. So I did that. Give me a solution. Oh, really? And then in the morning, it said very clearly, contact 3 people in your life who have been beacons of light. And one of them immediately came to mind was Hazel, whom I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. Hazel ran wonderful courses on a Greek island, African dance and encounter groups and therapy and dreams and storytelling. You name it, she's got it. And so I phoned up, I sent Hazel an email. And you know, if you haven't spoken to somebody, your heart's, she won't remember me, you won't remember me. And then 10 minutes later, of course I remember you. Let's meet, let's have lunch. So we had a fantastic lunch in a little Turkish restaurant in London. And then she said, you've got to come to Poland. I said, why Poland? She said, because I run a group called The Many Ways of Being a Woman, and you'll love it. And so I went. I didn't like it to start. It was too German. It was very, but anyway, I liked it in the end. In the end, it worked. And then I met Tally. We actually met on cooking duty when everything went wrong. And then lockdown happened, and I was alone in my flat in Paris, 23 hours a day. You could only go out for 1 hour. You got fined if you went out for more than an hour. I was really happy because there was nothing that could bother me from the outside world. Fine. And then Tally sent me pictures of her website. And I probably during lockdown had all the time to go into those pictures. And I thought there's something in these pictures which is really affecting me on a deep level. And it was something to do with the suffering coming out of those pictures, but also the sense of somebody who'd come through the suffering. And like I called it dancing in the fire. So this to me affected me. And I said to Tally, we were on the internet, and I said, I feel like you're telling my story in pictures. So she said, why don't you send me your poems? Because she knew I wrote poems. And so then we started exchanging poems and paintings. And then it was really very peculiar. So Hazel calls it morphic resonance, which is sort of what's out there in the air and how we come together, sometimes in mysterious ways, synchronicity, magic, whatever you want to call it. And so then what happened was, so Tally would send me, she sent me a painting of, she's buried in sand. And I said, well, that's fine. I already have a poem called Sand Woman. That's fine. Oomph, they go together. And then she said, well, I've got one of a nice happy one of a woman drowning. That's fine. And I said, well, that's fine. I've got a poem about a woman drowning called Panic. So that went together. And then she said, well, you wouldn't have a poem about a snail, would you? And I said, well, that's funny. So I have a poem about a snail. This went on and on. So it was a real, everything had been written and painted beforehand. And we just had to put them together. And this whole book has been like that. And so I'm going to hand over to you, Tally, because this is one she sent me called The Red Shoes. And I said, yes, of course. I've got a poem called The Red Shoes. So it just went together, and I'll let Tally talk about the paintings. That was the how the book started.
Okay, so this painting was called, surprise, surprise, Red Shoes. Okay, I just want to say a little about how we met. I am from Israel. I grew up on kibbutz. I don't know if you know what kibbutz is. I know Israel now is very much in the news, but kibbutz is an old thing. It's a communal living, okay? And Hazel came as a volunteer on the kibbutz, and that's how we met. And we became friends because I came to live in England, in London after that. And when she set up that group of many ways of being a woman, she invited me. And of course, I would come to anything Hazel invited me, almost, because it's always very interesting. And that's where I met Vivian. And so that's how our kind of threesome was created. And then lockdown. I also really enjoyed lockdown because it was so quiet, and I had time to paint and to just be quiet. I'm a person who rushes around all the time, and I was made to sit quiet, and I loved it. I discovered I love it. Okay. Yeah. So, but the paintings were actually, most of them were done before lockdown. Okay. And so I already had them on my website, and Vivian could see them during lockdown. And sorry, I'm very kind of moved, so I have to just look at my notes. So the paintings is really about a process I went about making my emotions known to me and to people around me, and being authentic, being connected to myself. And growing up on kibbutz, you're very much a part of a group. And I felt I needed to separate from the group. And so the image for me and the curator of my exhibition had quoted Bachelard for the text she had in my exhibition. And it said, the house where we were born is physically inscribed in us. And he goes on to say what a happy house, childhood is such a happy place. It's a long quote, so I cut it short. And actually thinking, well, how, a childhood, the home can be a happy place or an unhappy place. It's not always a happy place. And for me, it was, I could say it was both. And in the book, there are paintings of my childhood and what I went through, but in an imaginary way. It's, and And it actually, for me, it shows how art can be transformative and heal. And so, what do you want to say?
So for me, this painting was, do you know the fairy story, The Red Shoes? No? It's a little girl. She has her own shoes, and then she sees a pair of red shoes in a cobbler's shop, whatever, and then she wants these red shoes, and she really wants them, and she puts them on, and then they start dancing her, and she can't stop dancing, and it's a nightmare. And for me, this fairy story really spoke to me about, I think, my own life at the time. There's so much pressure from family, from society, from heaven, social media, to be something that you're not. And where is your authentic, true self? And how do we find it? How do we hold on to it? And what happens when we lose it? So this was my, it's a bit violent, but that's the way it is. They took away my old red shoes, said they were dirty, stained red with currants, blotched brown with loam. I made them myself, sewed together in big stitches, odd patches of soft leather, as irregular as leaves. Strange they were, soft to walk in. The soil spoke slowly through their soles. When they had gone, I walked barefoot through the summer, till winter came, colourless. I ate the skeletons of leaves. Starving, I craved the colour red, as in currants, as in muscles, as in stomach, as in flame, as in gleaming, as in bright. They caught my eye, shiny new red shoes. I stole them from a cobbler, stuffed my feet in. Oh my, how I danced with fat barons, with fast gamblers, with brown dervishes, with thin gypsies, with my eyes bloodshot with desire, my tongue dangling like a dog's, fire in my throat, no coat on my back. Still, I warmed up for winter, danced my new red shoes around the town, till I mean, he thinks he made the world in 7 days. 7 days? I was in labour for 10 million years. Chips of rock split my body and came out molten. Lava exploded from my belly, turned the universe orange. And was the volcano? I do consist of layers and layers and layers. The world knew it once. Statues to me all over the place. Soil full of swollen-bellied homage. They were on the right track. He was the house husband. Now I have to clear up after him. It's a mess, I tell you. House stuffed with dogma and ideas. I don't mind the dust. It's all those beliefs that get me. I'll have to have a word with him when he has a minute about who really wears the trousers.
I love this Vivian's sense of humor, but also such a strong point of the world we live in. The techniques I use for the pictures in the book, so they're all done digitally. This is a digital drawing, and maybe we'll go on to the next one. No, previous one.
Sorry.
No, the other way. No, the other way. No, you go to the end.
Oh.
Yes.
That's sorry.
So this one, I started by taking a photo from my childhood album and extracting it, and that is me up there, and then adding things to it from my paintings, from nature, from all kinds of things, and creating like a collage, a digital collage. And the idea was to express a feeling. So it was like a portrait, an emotional portrait, really, for me. And so what I'm going to tell you now is the trigger. So when the memory came back, it was using life. And for many years, I didn't. I was in have this mechanism in us that we can we just forget things. We just and so I have my phone. It's a price because having to forget so your remote and this is about this picture. Feeds to my where people that I but on a this is the
I'm a bit. Oh, no, it's